Hey, welcome everybody. It's Coach Hofman here with Elite Sports University. I have the privilege and honor to have Brenda Smoody here joining us today. How you doing today, Brenda?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Brenda and I actually met at the last NSCA TSEC conference or seminar, and I thought it would be a great chance to actually talk with her today, especially on the side of the tactical operator as it applies to yoga and rehabilitation. So maybe you could give our listeners a little bit of a background on who you are and what you do and how you got involved in the tactical world.
Okay, so obviously my name is Brenda Smoody and I work as a physical therapist assistant. I've been doing that for about 18 years in an orthopedic setting. I also teach yoga. Obviously, I did my 200-hour certification in India, in Rishikesh, 2 years ago, which that was in Hatha Yoga and in immersion program. So I was there for about 6.5 weeks. And then a month later, I took the TSAC exam. So I, got interested, I guess, into the tactical realm because I initially had thought, I'd like to incorporate or approach the Milwaukee Police Department about yoga to see if, they had anyone coming in there doing it. And that was prior to me leaving to India. So I had thought about this and I reached out to them. But within those couple months before I left for India, maybe 6 months, I had been looking into, doing a certification. I wanted to do the CSCS, but I do not have my bachelor's degree. So that puts a stop to that. And I didn't, need to do some further education. So that will come. But so then I was looking, I didn't want to do personal training because I could probably do that, regardless. So I had been looking at the different certifications and that popped up and I just got really excited about it. So it really made sense to me to do that.
So let's kind of go into this. You spent a lot of time. That's amazing that you actually spent time in India studying yoga. I mean, what better place to do it? But how is it when you went to the police department? How was it received when you came with this idea of applying yoga into, the law enforcement side?
Okay, so it's kind of an interesting story because, I guess I know quite a few people in the police department. I have a stepbrother. So from, 13, 14 years old on, I was just kind of exposed in different ways. So I had, someone had gotten me in contact with the wellness coordinator at that time, who is Greg McKay. And I just contacted him via email. And my initial thought was to get myself exposed to like the SWAT team, because I was trying to incorporate getting some exposure to the tactical setting for the strength and training, right? And then the yoga, I had said, so, okay, here's the other thing. I'm going to India and I'm going to be getting my certification. I believe that it would be really beneficial, I would think, to bring in some, stress reduction strategies. I also teach Pilates, just throwing it out there. Can I offer a class for you when I get back? I'd be more than willing to do that. And he was very, very open to it. So, he was like, hey, you can come in, watch a SWAT team. And I have a favor to ask of you, can you come in and offer yoga 1 day a week when you get back? So it was great. I had it all set up. So that's how that went. Yeah. So
that's a good little way to start, and that's better than most people have had.
Yeah, it was great. But I think people are like, well, why did you just go for the gusto right away? Like, why did you go for Milwaukee? And I'm like, that's how I roll. I didn't think of the suburban, not that I didn't think of them, but I just, it's like, I know the culture. I know I've been exposed to it. So it just seemed natural to me to do that. So as I came back, I touched base with him, I had heard nothing. Okay, so I just let it be. 3 or 4 months later, I got a call from someone else that had taken over his position. He had gotten sick, and he eventually ended up passing away. So of cancer, and I unfortunately did not get to thank him for opening up this opportunity for me, because that's who did that, really, essentially. So, but he passed on my name within this time to someone else. So I was really grateful for that. So then they invited me in, and I did a 4-week session for them.
Wow. So how was it received? I mean, first of all, let's come at it from your point of view. You come in, these are law enforcement, A-type personalities. Sometimes they're unique in their own right. You know, how did you feel coming in?
I guess I was maybe a little bit anxious, but I think you should have some of that, you know? And I just thought, well, I'm just going to be myself. And what I came here to do was share something that could be really beneficial, because it's been really beneficial for myself. And, you know, a lot of the people were from the academy that were there. So I think they were a little bit more open. And then there's some of the other officers there, and they really enjoyed it. They liked it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and I think it's good for the listeners to hear when they hear that, you know, you are going in not as an officer, but someone who's actually just trying to help them out. And it's funny you say, you know, you had your feelings. I mean, I was scared shitless when I came in on the job the first couple of years, you know, when you come across these individuals. And I think that's important for people to understand that, you know, you have to be sending off the right message. Your heart has to be in the right place to actually achieve success.
Correct. And, you know, to be honest, for me coming in with the yoga, I can be, I guess I feel a lot more confident or just comfortable with that and presenting that than, yes, I have my PT background, but, you know, it's a little different than strength training as well. So that's where I am gaining more skills, you know, fine tuning things. So that to me is a little bit more like, whoa, you know, but yeah, so it was, I enjoy the challenge.
That's great. So, okay, I got to ask this, because I think yoga is wonderful. Like anything else, it has its place. Everyone has, strength training has its place, high intensity training, everything has a place in your workouts. But there seems to be a stigma with yoga in the tactical setting. And I wanted to know, how do you go about overcoming that? Like, you know, oh, it's not very manly or whatever crap they like to say, you know. I mean, how would you explain it to them to make it sound a little more fitting to their world?
Well, the way that I look at it is applying it to their everyday life, whether that be they're sitting in a patrol car for 5 hours, you know, it's going to help you with flexibility. It's going to help you with stability. It's going to help you with I mean, like if you're on a chase, you know, you have to go. And I think, you know, I don't always approach it with, this is just for stress reduction. You know, I think it's more about addressing the issues at hand. You know, some people are really out of shape. Some people are really in shape. It's going to benefit you either way, because you do need to balance out the workouts, right? And then for the people that are maybe more veterans, that just gets them even moving, you know? So the stigma, I think that's like cracking an egg. Like it's going to take a while. Like I just started to crack the shell, you know? But like I said, I'm completely up for the challenge. So like you had said to me, you know, like just be yourself, when we had been talking about just different things when we had that conversation. So that's how I come. And if people have questions, I'll ask them. But I think also reducing any kind of anxiety they have, because I think too, there's a comparison factor. Like, well, and this is what I hear. I can't stretch. I can't get my hands down to the floor. but it's not about that. So I just say, put your egos aside if you can, and just enjoy yourself and have some humor about it, because I think the intensity of the job translates. So that's where it's like, okay, you can have this time for yourself and just enjoy it. So
I think that's great. I can't put my hands down to the floor. I would say to the person, yeah, you can't bench press 300 pounds, but you have to start somewhere.
right.
So,
Right.
And it's great. I think the way you're approaching it and then being realistic, and for you being the coach, being comfortable with the material goes a long way. You have probably an easier way of explaining it and how it would benefit them. Whereas I would be the first one to say I'm not a yoga person. I've never done it. I've only read up on it. And I'm always fascinated with the breathing aspect of it. Maybe you could talk to us about some of the breathing, how it really does focus on, proper diaphragmatic breathing and how that can actually help, reduce stress and help relax them a little bit.
Right. So, there's different ways that I approach that. So let's say I'm working with someone in physical therapy, right? As an officer, as a firefighter. And I know that they know how to breathe when they're in certain situations, right? But how does that translate when you are just everyday life? Are you going back to chest breathing, the incorrect way? So I really don't like to put a lot of pressure on anyone, because I think it becomes I have to meditate 5 minutes a day. I have to breathe correctly. It has to be perfect. So to take that pressure off, I just simply have them lay down, and I'll do this in yoga too, and just have them put their hands on their belly and just inhale and exhale. As far as the breathing techniques, I always like to say have the inhale shorter than the exhale. There's a 7-11 breath. You inhale for 7, exhale for 11. But it, again, I try to take the pressure off. I just want them to get into their bodies. That's what I want them to do. That's my goal.
I mean, that's actually a great place to start.
Yeah, and I think, once you explain and not be over people's head where, you're saying, sometimes people, if they know what sympathetic means or parasympathetic, and just, but, rest and digest and flight or fight. Of course people are educated and they get that, but to really explain, what does that mean? What is a sympathetic response? Well, that can be when you start sweating, instantaneously when you start to get stressed. Okay, well, maybe that is when you incorporate that breathing, and then you start to relax. And that is where the parasympathetic comes in. The parasympathetic nervous system comes in, and helps regulate that. So I really just try to keep it simple. And, I can't tell you how many times people really appreciate and say, you know what, Brenda, I use that a lot just in my, everyday life before going to bed, So I guess if that answers your question.
I think it does. One is you're just basically saying, you're trying to keep it simple, right? KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, and not trying to make it overly complex for the individual, but rather making it so that they feel comfortable doing it. And that's really important. It doesn't matter if you're doing resistance training or yoga or anything for that matter. These individuals are already proud of working in their field. They can do the job regardless, 90% of the time. They may not do it well, but they can get the job done. And so you really have to, the tactical population is very guarded in terms of protecting their confidence. And by allowing them to say, hey, it's okay, let's just make it simple, really is an enormous strategy that most people, I don't think, really apply. They're like, no, you have to do it this way. And I'm like, no, maybe you should treat it with kid gloves and make it simple without trying to embarrass them.
I agree, because I think then that makes them uncomfortable. And again, it goes back to, I have to do this perfectly, and there is no perfect way for it, and you talk about meditation, and this is how, and there are certain ways to do certain things, but everyone gravitates, I think, towards something else. If you cannot sit, maybe the meditation is walking in the woods to start out with, so I think that there are certain principles, to be applied, but I also think that it's per person, that you can tweak things, to not make it so overwhelming.
That's really important. We're talking about tactical, law, military, fire. And if you work with athletes, and I'm sure you've come across this in a physical therapist clinic, athletes are different. They have a strong mentality. They'll listen to you. They'll do it. You could be like, hey, lift this, do that. And it's pretty cut and dry. What I found with the tactical population is they're actually more sensitive. They're more sensitive. I cannot approach them in the same manner as an athlete. One, because most of them are not athletic. They're just in a very physically demanding job. But two, I don't want to embarrass them. I don't want to put them in a position of embarrassment. I don't want to put them in a position where they feel self-conscious. And that actually would take away from their pride of doing their job. So it's a very delicate situation. So, by telling them, hey, just go out and walk and start to slow down a little bit and making them feel like it's okay is so important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think people really respond to that well. And like you said, I am not doing their job. So I'm surely not coming in saying, just because I've been exposed to the lifestyle and lots of different things, I'm not doing their job. So I just think these tools can just be very, very productive for them.
One thing that as a coach, it's starting to scare me a little bit because I'm seeing other individuals apply yoga, and I'm like, it has a great place. This whole mind, breathing, body segment is wonderful. But I'm a little worried about how it's being communicated in the tactical setting because, that, oh, yeah, yoga, touchy-feely stuff. And I'm like, give it a chance. And I'm starting to see that maybe we – I guess explain it in a manner where it sounds cool, if for a lack of a better term. I mean, have you come across this? I don't want to do that stuff. That's just, baby stuff. And I actually am like, no, there's a place for it. It's just being miscommunicated to you guys.
Well, sure, because if you know this, I think the go-to is cardio, high intensity cardio and strength. But in order to recover, you also need to balance that out, right? And I think that's where yoga has its place. I think yoga can be very intense depending on what style you're practicing, But this is my thought, and not everyone is probably going to agree with me, but
right?
Everyone
agrees with me.
It's kind of like, okay, when are we going to do this intense yoga, and my thought is, but it's important to slow down and know what that feels like, to be rested, to be able to have that tool in your back pocket, just like the breathing. That tool is so easily in your back pocket that you can use it at any time. So to break that, I guess that persona of yoga, that it's baby, I think it's just getting right. Like, I think it's just getting people in there and trying it because they're like, holy cow, I can't even balance on one foot. And you were right. This is challenging because the way that I practice, I do, like I said, more the hatha base, which is more breath and movement, stability. And I also teach restorative. So I think that holding the postures, you're also like neural re-ed and things like that you're working on, that I don't think that even the tactical people that are more athletic, I don't know if that really crosses their mind. So I think they're learning something new with that too. But it's just, I think cardio is easy and it's quick and you can get it done. And this is slowing down. But I can tell you personally, that's why I've been brought into it as well, because I have that type of a personality where it's go, go, go. But it's been so beneficial. So
it's like one time I actually brought in a yoga instructor for the Academy of Recruits and the staff at that time. But I said, look, let's do one thing. We're not going to call it yoga. We're going to call it stretching. Do your thing. And at the end, we're going to tell them what it was. Because I'm like, don't place the stigma in their head already for them to be like reactive. let them enjoy it, and then tell them what it was. And it actually seemed to work because it was like, oh, really? That's what yoga was? And I'm like, yeah, that's the little game I have to play with you guys.
Well, and that makes sense. And I think too at the TSAC conference when we were doing the kind of the roundtables for police, fire, right? And Jay was running that, and I was just saying I started the 7-week session at the gym that I work at for just first responders, but it's half hour. It's called Extreme X, so it's half hour cardio because extreme, right?
Yeah.
Half hour like agility, cardio, just mixing it up, and then half hour yoga. Can you guess how many people showed up for the first session?
10.
1. He's awesome though, and you have to start somewhere, and I'm fine with that, But I think maybe we switch it to stretch. I don't know, but I think there's different factors that.
No, it's true. What did we call it one time? We called it tactical stretching, just because it opened them. It actually reduced the barriers of their mental approach towards it. They didn't have a predetermined notion of coming in and thinking, oh, we're going to do touchy-feely yoga. They were like, what the heck is this tactical stretching crap? And so it was more curious than anything else.
Right. So, there might be some tweaking having to be done. But I think too, a lot of other things come into play. But, I had done, I did, I think about 4 or 5 rounds, 4 at the police, different districts, and we tried different things. And one time I did go and talk at roll call so they could see me, and explain it a little bit more. And I said,
yeah, and they'll probably they have a face now to associate with what you're doing.
Right. So I wish I had the recipe that would be, ideal, that would draw them in a little bit more, but it could be just renaming it, with the stretching aspect versus just yoga. But I think it is going to become, my thought is it's going to become a little bit more mainstream.
I think it has to. It really does. I mean, it has a great place in there. Based off my experiences, it's being communicated incorrectly. I'm like, I can't tell you how many times I read something on the internet about, hey, firefighters need to do yoga to fix their backs. And I'm like, whoa, easy with that. That's like saying, if I run 1.5 miles without no blood work, I'm going to have no heart disease. Like, let's slow down. It has its place. We don't know we can't tell firefighters or law or everybody who has back pain to just go stretch because we don't have enough information. And what if it didn't work? Now you've actually did more harm with yoga than actually applying it where it should be applied. And it's kind of crazy. I'm like, it's actually no different than high intensity power training cures cancer, right? Like CrossFit fixes everything. It's like, no, it has its place, but let's make sure that we communicate it clearly and educate people on where it's beneficial.
Well, and I agree with you that I think that is the key is educating, I guess if they need more research on it, like if they want articles, I'm happy to produce articles for people. Some people like to see that, and I think that's great. But I agree that it has its place, and I think the whole thing about it is balance with everything. So I think it brings in more awareness, which translates out into nutrition. Do I need to work overtime? Do I not? Do I need to rest? So I think that's where it is really important that benefits all different aspects of life.
Yeah, I'm actually quite fascinated with this new trauma yoga in terms of how it will help benefit the tactical population in terms of reducing the mental stress and being in tune with their body and being in touch with their body. That's the one cool thing about athletes. They are in tune with their body. The higher they go up on the level of professionalism, they're actually more in tune with their body than most people realize. But how do we get the tactical operator to get to that place? And it's really important that they understand that. how to be in contact with their body, how it's moving, how they're feeling, how they're mentally doing, how they're breathing. It does affect everything from their neck pain to their back pain and as well as stress. And this is a great place to actually start doing it, is with the yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I had to laugh though. You said one person came to your class. Right? That is okay. I will be the first one to tell you I probably have had classes in the past when I started that I had no people show up. So.
Well, it's funny because Kai, who is the wellness coordinator for MPD for Milwaukee Police Department, so he came and watched yesterday because it was Wednesday. So Wednesday was my first day. But I think what needs to happen is, so this person is very motivated, okay, and he is really excited about it. He loved it. So I think, word of mouth, things like that. But luckily, my ego, like I did not get triggered. I just am happy to be there, So.
I can't tell you how many times, Brenda, I would be like, well, that didn't work out so well. Okay, let me go back to the drawing board. And if you're going to be a tactical operator or a facilitator, I mean, you really do. You have to. There's no set of instructions for us to do this. It's kind of like, hey, I'm going to try this. And if it works, cool. If it doesn't, I'm going to go back and try to figure out. I know it will work. I just don't have a good plan of execution, maybe. It happens. Well,
and I mean, but I love networking. I love marketing. I stop in different police stations and chatted with them. But, you're right. It's like the beginning. You have to start somewhere. I mean, I started with the yoga, right? So yeah. I thought if we switch it up a little bit.
Your greatest asset is going to be the rumor mill.
Right.
I cannot express that enough to everybody out there. You may have one person show up today and they go, wow, that was really good. And they tell two. Two goes to four. And it does. All of a sudden, because I always try to tell them, be patient. Just wait it out. You're not going to have 100 people knocking on your door day one. It's going to be one person at a time. But the rumor mill is going to be very helpful to you if you know what you're doing.
Well, and I agree. And what I thought is super beneficial, because then I actually got to talk to him a little bit more one-on-one. Like, MPD needs are a little different than suburban PD needs. So like last week they had coffee with a cop at our local, like one of the local coffee shops. So I take advantage of those events. And I went and I said, hey, I dropped a flyer off and I just wanted to introduce myself. And so what's the biggest issue at your department? Like physically, low back, so I really like to have them tell me, and we got into this big conversation about a couple other things. I mean, they didn't come, but I think also like time, you can't match everyone's time that they can come either. So, but regardless, it's a start, I'm happy to promote it.
No, I think that is. And you're absolutely right. You have to start somewhere. And, even to this day, 10 years later, and I've been in the industry, it's like I'm still sometimes guessing. Mick Stearley in Australia, Jay Dawes, like we're sometimes still guessing because it's not a in-stone thing. This tactical field is still new. And we're all just kind of guessing on how we're going to go about it. And you're absolutely right by saying, the city PD is going to be way different than the suburban PD. And you need to ask that. You got to say like, hey, well, how many calls do you guys run? Well, what do you guys need? Whereas the suburban departments may be a little more less stressful and more resources. A lot of times the suburban departments actually have more money.
Oh, I agree. And that's part of the issue too. Like personally, my thought is that the yoga meditation should be started at the academy. I feel like it should be implemented there. But I also feel like I like working with the veterans on the police department because they're a little bit more seasoned. They might be a little less, they can be a little bit more open because they're like, I'm kind of coming towards the end of my time. I want to enjoy my retirement. I want to take this opportunity. So I think you can get mixed reviews where some of the younger guys, I think like me offering this, they might be like, oh, I have my workout already. Why do I need someone,
Sure.
to take me to or through certain things. So, but that's okay. I mean, I agree with you with as far as kind of figuring things out in the tactical side. It's not cookie cutter. And I think it takes a certain personality to be like, that's okay because I'm willing to do what I need to do to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I fell on my face and I still fall on my face constantly, and that's okay. You just pick yourself back up. And when you're talking about the academy, I think the whole idea of if you're going to incorporate anything that would benefit the long-term success of their health and wellness would be in the academy. And I've always tried to establish with other people is, look, the academy is a short-term and long-term solution. But your job as a facilitator is to provide them and expose them to a number of different training modalities, including recovery strategies and stuff. So when they leave, they have an enormous toolbox and they know how to apply it, and once they're gone out of the academy, they're gone. It's very hard for you to see them again. They're now about their daily life and stuff like this and got the job. So the academy is really about education. It's not about kicking the living shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of that, you have a two-pronged approach, the academy. But then, you got those older guys out there. And you try to help them, one by one versus the masses. And hopefully the strategy there is a little bit different. But at the same time, you're like, hey, well, maybe this could help, your well-being for when you retire. And that's the strategy I think a lot of facilitators have to understand. You're coming at it from all different angles.
Right. Yep, I agree.
One shoe doesn't fit all. And when we hear about health and wellness in this field, that's what everybody thinks. And I'm like, well, no, fire and cops are actually different. They're cousins, but they're different. And we can't just go, oh, well, the military does it like this. And I'm like, well, the military is a different beast unto itself.
I agree. And that is a totally different aspect. I did do one session for the Coast Guard, and they loved it. But again, it's the whole making time, and they had to pay. So that element comes into it. But anyway, but getting back to, yes, like with the workouts, I'm pulling in probably more police officers than I am fire. But my goal, like for what I'm doing, is to just get people moving, because I think I'm probably going to pull in a little bit more of the veterans, and they don't move a lot, and they get injured when they have to go for an in-service or for something. They get active, and then they're doing something and they hurt something, or they pull a hamstring or whatever it might be, or they have to do a quick, jolt or jaunt, whatever you want to call it, and they're not in shape, so I feel like offering services to them is really important.
It is, and you're so right. I always said, man, if you could get the old salty dog to buy into what you're doing, he'll tell all the other little cubs, this is good for you. And I always found that kind of unique. I'm like, man, if I could just get one of these old salty veterans to, just give me the thumbs up, 10 others will be like, oh, okay, maybe it's not so bad. But that's the challenge, right? That's the fun stuff of how do you make this work? And I know it works for you guys. I just haven't figured out yet how to get you guys to believe it yet.
Right. Yep.
Have you ever talked to Jordan Ponder or Jason Mims at Milwaukee Fire?
I had reached out to Jason in the beginning before I even went to India, took the test, because I've not talked to Jordan. So I had reached out to him because my initial thought was like, I need to find a mentor ASAP before I even take this test, because that's how I am. I want to find someone because I want to bounce things off. Well, I talked to Jason a little bit, and then just busyness and things like that. And then I just met him actually personally at the TSAC conference very, very shortly. So, yeah, so that was that. But no, I did not meet Jordan.
Well, remind me, I'll make some introductions for you. Jordan is a captain there and the fire department, and a big fitness enthusiast, very smart, very intelligent, just a great guy. I'd actually call him a friend, as well as Jason. Jason actually has done a phenomenal job at Milwaukee. 10 years ago, I'd say me and him both were kind of pissing into the wind. We didn't know what we were doing. So And it shared ideas and, hey, well, what's working for you? And, you know, one of those ideas of let me see how I can help others. And I'll definitely make sure you get a hold of those guys because I think they would be good resources for you out there. You guys all can come together and share, you know, some ideas.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So if you were to give anybody any advice who wants to get into this crazy industry of the tactical world, because it seems to be a hot thing right now, what would you give them? What type of advice would you tell them?
Well, I would say to, you know, make sure that this is something that you want to do, because I think there are these challenges, right? So, I think being able to relate to, the population as well. I don't think that you can really be afraid of anything, because you're going to have to, you're going to have to pull out all the stops, you know, you're going to have to trust what you know. And, I think everyone has something different to offer. So if you're worried about competition or, you know, I just feel like we're all here to offer something. So not everyone offers the same thing. And, what was that?
Leave your ego at the door.
Correct. And, you know, I guess to me, the biggest thing is networking. That's obviously how I met you. That's how and, you know, I didn't even come in. I came in with a little bit of strategy because that's how I am. You know, I mean, I strategize. Yes. But I think that's really important, because I think if you look ahead at certain things, like, okay, I'm going to this conference, who do I maybe want to meet? And I've had people that I didn't even, you know, just came through, like with you too. I mean, I reached out. I think we had a couple conversations about, you know, even bouncing that 7-week session off of you really briefly. But I also met like 5 other people that I wouldn't have expected. So I think keep yourself open, because you never know. You know, you meet one person and they're going to introduce you to someone else, because I felt like I was so focused on the mentorship. And then when I talked to you, and again, I know we talked really briefly, but you're like, you know, you don't have, it doesn't seem that you have to have one certain person. You can have a couple people that you can bounce ideas off, you know, so that made me feel a little bit better, because I think I'm just a little bit more, I know I need this, but guess what? Maybe I'm the mentor for other people, so I have to figure this out on my own. And that's how typically life seems to work. and then, you know, I don't push it. Like, if I reach out to someone and it might be a dead end, or I might gather one thing and then our meeting is over. And I don't take that personally. I think it's just like, you connect with who you're supposed to connect with, and it might be 2 people down from who that is, you know?
You know, it's crazy. That's what don't take it personal. That is so true, because, you know, let's be honest, you, myself, you know, all these other individuals, we have a big heart and we want to help these tactical, the law, fire, military people. We want to help them. And they will be guarded, and they are going to test you or challenge you. And you as a coach have to have thick skin. Don't take it personal. They're just testing you. I mean, I remember years ago, I would probably come home and cry. I was like, my God, what am I doing? These guys are just so mean to me, and I haven't done anything. But it's really important that people don't take it necessarily personal. You just have to figure out how to earn their respect, and it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of times people get frustrated, like, why don't they like me? Why don't they do this? And the one unfortunate thing is, I think, in this industry right now, is because it is growing. You know, I've been in with Sacramento and for 10 years, mixed early, all these guys, we've been doing it for like 10 years plus. But we didn't have any idea of where we were going or how we were going to do it or how we were going to be perceived, or don't even think about calling me an expert. I'm just still guessing. But now all of a sudden, people are coming in, the younger coaches are coming in and going, well, I want to be like you. And I'm like, do you understand how much shit I had to take to get to you? Like, you see years 8, 9, and 10. You didn't see years 1, 2, and 3 with me on the fetal position on the couch sucking my thumb going, oh my God, these guys are horrible to me. And that's really what, you got to explain to these new young coaches coming in, like, look, you only see the love now that I'm getting, but you understand how hard I had to work, how we had to earn it, all of us. You're going to have to do your time, and you're going to have thick skin. And the only thing I always try to tell them is, look, be patient and understanding, and do not let your passion turn into frustration. If you do, you're done.
I agree. And I can see, like, in this path, and I didn't know I would have been taking this path. Seriously. Sometimes I was thinking about it as, you sent me the questions, and I was kind of reflecting, and I'm like, I feel like this path in a way kind of chose me as well, and never would have thought of that. But I feel like group fitness instructing set me up for this, as far as, like, you might feel rejected because one person might show up. Now, if I wouldn't have had that experience I had 6 years ago, like just building a class or whatever, I probably would be feeling like, oh, I'm a failure. And I totally don't.
Absolutely.
I'm like, this is the beginning, so I'm excited about it. I feel like I take the opportunity and I just go with it. And whatever has to be tweaked has to be tweaked. I'm honored to have the time with these men and women. And that's the bottom line. I learn all the time, and I will continue to learn. So
you have to.
You have to. That's what helps you grow, and learn. So.
And that's really important what you were saying about having that network of individuals around you. I mean, I still have a number of people, and I'm always open to helping anybody, because I'm like, hey, I'm going to learn something from them. I know I am. I don't know any of this stuff. This is cool. And it's, it's really what makes I think the job or the career exciting, is going, oh, wow, I didn't see that. That's really fascinating.
Yes, for sure. And I appreciate that about you, because you are so generous, with your suggestions and, hey, you can bounce something off of me, but I want you to know, and I think, people really respect that, and we respect your time. I know I do.
Oh, I appreciate that. I always think to myself, and I'll be honest, I always tell people that this is why I'm so forthright. I have no problem helping anybody out if they ever ask, because I remember how hard it was when I first started. And I reached out to a few colleagues who were actually the strength and conditioning coaches in the athletic world. And I said, hey, can you teach me some things here and there? And these guys taught me. And so the saying's always been, John, pay it forward, like teach everybody else. It's not your information. It's not your stuff. It's just you're helping everybody else like we helped you. And that really is. You don't want to see other people struggle with what you've struggled with already when it's not needed.
Right. And I think to your point, not to be afraid to ask for help, especially, like I said, some of these things are a little uncomfortable for me, as far, like, not uncomfortable, because I feel like, I've been in the PT world, but it's just a little bit different animal. And I have to, like, hey, tell me or show me, maybe where I need to look. What do I need to study? What do I need to, improve on, whatever it may be. And I think that too, to your other points, as far as offering information and maybe not being afraid, like, someone's going to take my idea. I don't want them to take my idea. Well, that's not what it's about, because you're restricting yourself. See, that's what yoga brings.
Yeah, you know what? I can't tell you how many people probably have taken some of my concepts, and I just laugh. I go, well, the greatest form of flattery is, someone taking their stuff. I mean, really, it's, what else are you going to do? Like, oh, well, that's what you gave it to them for. Right.
And the world is really big, right? We're all in different areas. So, I mean, why not share concepts, Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree with you.
No, I think it's a lot of fun. It's always good to get new ideas. It's good to bring in, and that's why I really wanted to bring you on board with this, because I think that yoga really has a phenomenal place in the tactical setting. I think a lot of people are just miscommunicating it and not selling it for really how beneficial it is. I get the whole, yoga instructor and, peaceful mindness, and it's all touchy-feely, but I'm like, don't sell it that way to these guys. Just be like, hey, we're going to stretch. Sit down. And I'm like, it has so much value. in regards to how it could help so many of the facilitators, the tactical population. And I just think sometimes they're a little scared. They're like, oh, I don't want to do that. That's not very, tough guy stuff. And I just shake my head going, man, if we just changed the name of it, you guys would probably do it, you knuckleheads.
Well, right. And I agree. Like, I do feel though, like, to stay true to what it is. Now, you have a wide gamut of yoga instructors, right? And there are going to be some people that will be drawn to some people. They might be like CrossFit yoga instructor. I feel like I'm a good balance. Like, I can be a little granola-y, but I also have this edge to me, So, and I'm upfront, and my thing is, I want to convey is I just want you to have the most benefit of it. And if it's for breathing, stretching, if it's the awareness of being in your body and knowing when to know when enough is enough of whatever it may be, so I think it's education. And if it's renaming it for this population, I think that's okay. But I think yoga is like, it should be accepted. But I think, we're all evolving, and I think things are changing slowly, probably within the departments, within the academies, and people are looking and saying, how can we help these men and women to maybe, handle things a little bit more where they're not going to other ways of coping that aren't healthy. So how can we implement, here's your go-to, breathing, yoga, take a walk, have a drink in moderation, or, whatever it may be.
Compress.
Right. So that's my, I'm going.
You nailed it on the head, Brenda. Actually, you really just made me think for a second there. And it was basically you just talking, but really, when I say to people, hey, change the name of it, you don't even need to change the name of yoga. In fact, I would probably say, you know what, expect that they're going to give you a little ball breaking on it, but own it. Own it. Yeah, mm-hmm. I do it, and own it. And if they see that you own it and you're passionate about it and that's your thing and you're not embarrassed by it, that goes a long way too. And I think sometimes people are like, well, I do yoga, but I'm like, no, man, own it. Like, if you do it, own it. They'll believe it. If you believe it, there'll be followers.
Exactly. And I'm thinking of this firefighter I know, and he was like, and he's been on the department for like 20 years, and he's like, I used to do yoga, but I do it at home because I didn't want to get made fun of. And then he's like, after a while, I didn't really care, So it's just breaking down those barriers. But there's just got to be that one or two people that are like, oh yeah. So,
it takes time.
A lot of time.
It takes time, but I'm glad to see it's out there. So if anybody ever wanted to get a hold of you, what would be the best way?
Right. So that would be my email, which is BRENJSMO@yahoo.com.
Well, I think you're doing a great job. I think it was a pleasure to meet you down at TSAC, and I'm always open to helping anybody out. And I know we're going to share ideas down the road, especially if I need some answers on yoga. I know you met Melissa, correct?
Yes, correct. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep, she's great.
Yeah, Melissa's another one right here in Sacramento, and she's also a big believer in yoga.
She is, yeah.
And that's a good thing. We're starting to see more, I guess, creativity, because it's not one shoe fits it all. It's what's best for them or that individual. And that's really what a health and wellness program is when we talk about the tactical side. It isn't just fitness. It isn't just this. It isn't just that. It's a number of things. And we as facilitators have to have a gigantic toolbox to be able to apply the right thing for the right person.
Correct. And be able to, be flexible on that too, obviously, as well, depending on the day and who's there and what's the level and things like that. But that's, it's what we do. So
you got to think on your feet constantly.
Right.
Well, I do appreciate you taking the time today, Brenda. It was a lot of fun. Again, this is Coach Hofman. I'm actually here talking with Brenda about the benefits of yoga and working within the tactical population. Brenda, you have anything else for our listeners?
No, I don't. I just want to say thank you and congratulations on your new position.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
I will talk to you later, Brenda. You be good.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Have a great weekend.
You too.